What is going on, everybody? Happy Friday. It is the PrizePicks prop show here at FTNFantasy.com. My name is Zach Graham, aka Kawaisenberg, DFS, ready to jump into tonight's single game slates in both the NBA and WNBA. Excited for this one, even though we've only got 2 games ahead of us on the hoop side of things. And of course, still hockey going on. Of course, baseball in full swing, a little bit of a short baseball slate yesterday, full slate ahead of us here on Friday. Mavs and Wolves game 2. And then we've got Sparks and Fever on the WNBA side of things. And if you are an FTN Fantasy subscriber, you've already got Alex Blickel's first 6-pick MLB play of the morning that was dropped into the chat, the Discord rather, about 20 minutes ago. So we've got that in, and we'll talk through some other plays here. Good to see Hugo in here with the new name. Dude, I didn't play any NBA basketball this year. I just ended up getting too busy. But as I was talking about on the playback stream last night, Hugo, did jump into some NFL slow drafts over there on Underdog. So trying to, dipping my toes in the NFL best ball streets. And here's Alex in here saying, how many different accounts have you made that your username? Enough to make waves. All right, let's jump into this here. First pick that I'm going to tonight is going to be from the Wolves side of things. Actually, before we get into the picks, just a quick programming note, talking with Alex behind the scenes. Next week, so starting on Monday, we're going to move the standard start time of the stream. Of course, today, 15 minutes earlier than our normal 12:15 p.m. Eastern start time. I got a meeting at 12:30, so gotta jump off here in about 20 minutes. But we're going to move up the standard start time of this daily stream by an hour to 11:15 a.m. Eastern, in an effort to get on some of these plays that we're on either ourselves or in the Discord channels that move by the time we get onto this stream. So some changes to the format again for our purposes here. Starting on Monday, this stream will start at 11:15 a.m. Eastern every day. So again, let's get into this one. Game 2, Western Conference Finals. Dallas obviously stole game 1. Very exciting finish to the first game of this series. And we've got the Wolves as 5.5-point home favorites here on DK. And we're going to start with the Wolves and look at Mike Conley and his points prop that is set at 10.5. And now Conley is questionable again with the soleus strain, right? The Achilles soreness. I think I've seen it listed as either or in certain places. Ultimately, I expect him to continue to play through that tag here. In game 1, saw Conley's second lowest shot attempt total through these playoffs, just 7 attempts. The only other time, I think it was game 2 of the first round against Phoenix, where he only shot 5 times. But Conley, I expect him to have Kyrie as his primary defender here again tonight. So I'm certainly not scared off of the individual matchup. And Conley's only been over this number in 5 of his 11 games this postseason, but both myself and the FTN data model here expect his shot attempts to go back up to right around 10-ish. And the efficiency has dropped off too since he missed game 5 of the Denver series. So maybe that strain is affecting him more than I'm giving it credit for. But the fact that I saw this on the board this morning and then the tool had it rated so strongly here, the model's got him projected for around 12.9 points today. So I'm locking in Conley more than 10.5 points as my first pick here today. And that's certainly one that I have my eye on the board for a potential. Oh, and as I say it, Mike Conley, demon on the board, 12.5 points. So I still need to work my way through all of these demons once we get off the stream here, because a lot of these have populated in the last 5 to 10 minutes. But I do like that Conley Demon if you are looking for one. Again, you have to mess around with the payout structure there, because as Alex has talked about multiple times over the last 2 weeks, the way PrizePicks changed the way their payout algorithm, whatever they've got going on back there, really a kick in the groin to us, especially those of us who have been doing well with those demons that were getting all of those entries up to 38x. So oh man, yeah, well, maybe there's T in the chat. Good to see T back in here. And yeah, I know, Mavs fan for life. And it feels really weird, Hugo, because I find myself rooting for this Mavericks team, and that's very unspursy of me. But, I think I came to the conclusion that it's just because the Mavs are just kind of little brother, always have been. And it would take a lot for them to ever catch up to, their counterparts, their big brother down in South Central Texas. So as we go here, again, I always got to remind you guys, if you haven't signed up yet at PrizePicks, you go over to PrizePicks, sign up using the promo code FTN. You get a deposit match bonus, 100% deposit match bonus up to $100. And I mentioned playing best ball over on Underdog a few minutes ago. You can also build similar, if not the exact same plays that we talk about here today on PrizePicks over at Underdog Fantasy. So right now, if you sign up at Underdog with that promo code FTN, you'll get a 50% deposit match offer up to $250, and you will also get a new customer special, a discounted pick when signing up with promo code FTN at Underdog. And then also the Sleeper app. I know we've talked about Sleeper. You go over there, sign up with that same promo code FTN. You'll get 100% deposit match bonus up to $100. So again, take advantage of those if you have not yet. Build that bankroll up with the free funds that these sites are giving out. And I say, yeah, hey, I'm with you. And I'm definitely, I don't know what it is, both in hoops and in soccer. And I think in football too. I'll side with Dallas over Houston. I don't know what it is. I can't explain. Yeah, then you say, except for Houston, no one likes Houston. I don't know. We'll see if we have any Houston folks in the chat here. Let's keep it moving. Okay. I want to talk about Luka Doncic and the prop that I had my eye on this morning. And this is one of those that has moved. So again, I think we're kind of seeing in real time some of the benefits we will get from moving this show up an hour starting next week. But Luka was set at 53.5 in terms of his fantasy score this morning. And as much respect as I have for the Minnesota defense, I imagine it's pretty standard respect. I think just from talking to a number of folks over the last 2 weeks, I think it's tough for us to get that game 2 performance against Denver out of our minds. I think that game is certainly the absolute ceiling for this team. And again, could that happen again tonight? And we're all wowed by just the defensive prowess, the dominance that they could exhibit in a single game sample, of course. And Luka has also been hobbled all postseason, right? And I think that's easily been seen both by the eye test and the stats. But as we theorized before game 1, I think the extra days off in between the conference semis and these conference finals seems to have done Doncic some good. And in his playoff career, of course, the majority of that being without a guy like Kyrie Irving next to him. But he's averaged 56.5 PrizePicks fantasy score points over his 41 career postseason games. He's also been over this number in 9 of the last 13. The FTN model doesn't agree with me as strongly as I really expected it to. It's projecting him for 54.5. And like I mentioned, this prop is now 54.5 on PrizePicks. So I grabbed it in a couple entries earlier. I think it's still fine in my eyes to take it a more than 54.5. But the model does not agree there. Again, projecting it right at that number. So there's another Luka prop, though, that the tool and I both like, and that is Luka more than 8.5 3-point attempts. So I'm going to put that in here in the tool as our second pick this morning. And Luka, of course, 10 3-point attempts there in game 1, averaging, I believe, 9.5 through these playoffs. Yeah, 9.5 per game over the 13 this postseason, but shooting at just a 30% clip. So he's really dragging his playoff average down with that number. But again, I do expect this game to remain competitive. I picked the Mavs in 6 coming into this series. And I think, again, 8.5, we've got him projected, you can see in the tool, right, a hair over 10 3-point attempts here tonight. And that's the number that we saw in game 1 as well. So Luka more than 8.5 3-pointers attempted. And looking back in the chat here, there you go. T says, love to see your first 2 props or two in my tool. He says, my brain. Yeah, that old noggin. That can be a tool sometimes. I agree with you. And then, so T, you're not going to see Ant or Towns here in my slips yet this morning, but I'll take a look at those for sure. And then 3-pointers made demon for Luka is something that Hugo is calling out here. And I agree, man. 3.5. That's not crazy at all, right? We saw him go over that number in each of the last 2 games. Last series to close out the Thunder. And if you're looking at his historical data, 3.3 made threes per game across his 41 career playoff appearances. But again, last season, or not last season, season before last, right? Because they tanked successfully, got Derek Lively, who's been such a big boon to their team on both sides of the ball here in these playoffs. But without Kyrie and, a Jalen Brunson in a lesser role, 3.4 made threes per game in his 15 games in that conference finals run back in 22. And the season before that, 4.4 made threes. That was just a 7-game sample. But Hugo, I agree. I think that demon on Luka's threes is indeed enticing, but I'm going to go to another one of his teammates here, and we're getting to the fantasy scoreboard here now with PJ Washington, more than 25.5 fantasy score. PJ is obviously continuing to play a massive role for Dallas in these playoffs, and we've seen him at times. Really, the only thing that stymies those minutes is foul trouble. And if we, again, I don't predict foul trouble here, so I think should be expecting right around another 40-minute outing here in game 2. I think this line is just a few points too low. Again, for a game, I expect to remain competitive throughout. And contrary to that Luka prop, where I think, as T said, right, my own PrizePicks tool up here in my noggin thought that the Luka projection might have been a little bit higher. I think the model's projection right now that has PJ around 29.5 fantasy score on PrizePicks, that feels a little bit hot to me. But again, I'm still well over that number here with my expectation, and plenty of buffer between the 25.5 line and the 29.5 projection in the FTN model. And I'm certainly, again, similar to Conley earlier, I'm not shying away from the individual matchup here for PJ. I saw a whole lot of Karl Anthony Towns there as expected in game 1. So we'll put PJ into our slips here. And I see T saying Clarendon under assist. So we'll talk about that game here right now. And can NAW please hit a shot? Check Ant peripherals or matchups. I'm not sure, T, what you're saying here, but again, I'll look more into Ant here in a little bit. But let's talk about the WNBA game tonight. And this, again, is another one. You see that 33.5 fantasy score on the screen right now. This is a prop, and I don't really understand what they're doing. It went from 33 to 33.5, and now it's 35.5. I still think that I know we've talked about Derek Hamby. Correction, that is up to 36.5 here. Again, this was 33 when they posted it about an hour ago. And again, I think just lends more credence to the idea of moving this stream up an hour next week. Starting next week on Monday, is going to help us here with some of the value. And again, another thing that we're going to do, I think, in tandem with moving the stream itself up, is posting our plays in the Discord a little bit earlier, because these are the types of values that you get when you're an FTN Fantasy subscriber and you have access to this Discord, where, again, guys like Alex, Meanie, Kenneth, myself, putting plays in there before we go live on more days than not. So Hamby, even at 36.5, where she is right now, I'll go ahead and take this off the screen because we're 3 points away from where that prop is at the moment. But Hamby, And again, I know we've talked about her multiple times, and I was a little bit hesitant last game when this line got up to this level. She's been over this number in all 3 games this season and the 2 preseason games that the Sparks had earlier this month. And of course, just reminding you all, the Agumake sisters gone, Azrae Stevens still sidelined with the injury. Hamby has really become the leader, the alpha of this LA squad. Career high 26.1% usage rate through these first 3 games. I know it's a small sample, but she's just playing a role that we have not seen in Hamby's career, which is, I think, 10 years long now at this point. And she's really coming into her own here in her age 30 season. The efficiency, I think, is still a little bit and maybe a lot bit higher than we should expect to see over the course of a full season. 59% right now through these 3 games, a career 47% shooter from the field. But again, the minutes and usage combo is too much for me here. I don't understand why this opened up at 33 this morning, but the entries that I'm looking at that I got this prop in at that number, feeling pretty good. And even at 36.5, I feel I seeing it for the 3rd time, whatever you want to say, 3rd time's the charm, what have you, like watching her do this again the other night. I'm going to keep riding this prop. 36.5. I still like the more than selection there. She's over 43.5 fantasy score in all 3 of these games. And again, she was over 36.5 in each of the 2 preseason games as well. So we'll look to Hamby for the over there. And then I'm going to go to her teammate in this Sparks front court. And this is another prop that has ridiculous movement over the last hour. They posted Cameron Brink at 22 fantasy score when this first popped on the board. And now it's up to 26.5. And I still like the more than selection here. We talked about, I believe in the Discord the other day, about her foul trouble. And when she can keep her hands to herself, the minutes upside that she brings and the fantasy score upside she brings, especially with the scoring of 3 points per stock here, because you look at somebody like Cameron Brink, who through the first 2 games of the season, massive foul trouble, took her minutes down in both of those games. And then last game, played the entire second half, just shy of 30 minutes in the game. Again, reminder, 40 minutes in a WNBA game as opposed to 48 on the men's side. But over the last 2 games, Brink has totaled 13 stocks. And I think we should see that continue. Maybe not to that degree, right? 6.5 stocks per game is a little bit lofty, but she doesn't need nearly that many here for me to feel good about the more than selection here. To me, it's about the fouls. And if she can kind of stabilize that here over this game and in the coming weeks, this line, I think we're going to be looking back on in a few weeks and saying, I can't believe we had Cameron Brink in the mid-20s in fantasy score. And maybe when Azrae Stevens comes back, things get shaken up here a bit in the front court. But for tonight, I like the more than selections on both of these. And if I had to just choose between the 2, I think I'm leaning towards Brink at 26.5 rather than Hamby at 36.5. But again, I like both of those. I have entries with those 2 paired this morning. So that does it for me in terms of my picks here. And T saying they took Clarendon down. DK still has it minus 135. Her props were boosted after the opening night triple-double. That's probably the fantasy ceiling we will see out of her this year. But, it remains to be seen. So we will, of course, have more discussion on props across all of the offerings on the PrizePicks board, underdog, sleeper, and the like in the FTN Fantasy Discord throughout the day leading up to all of the action this evening. And before we get out of here, just one more time, Conley, more than 10.5 points. Luka, more than 8.5 threes attempted. PJ Washington, more than 25.5 fantasy score. Hamby, more than 33.5 fantasy score. It's at 36.5. We still like it now. And then Brink, more than 26.5 fantasy score. One more reminder on the way out, starting next Monday, moving the stream up an hour, 11:15 a.m. Eastern will be our new start time. And I appreciate all of you tuning in and sticking with me, whether you caught it live or on the replay. And of course, good luck tonight, everybody.